Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Tackle Shop Live.
A sunny day, right there you took my breath away.
Hey, man.
A young and
How's
pretty,
everybody
was
doing
it just
tonight?
a dream?
Yeah, Scott
The
Lawfall's
next
in
day
the
you
house.
called me up. You
Charlie
told me
Estes,
on your
how
little
are you, buddy?
buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms.
Yeah. Right on,
Well,
brother.
I know what I feel.
Tim
Please
McKee,
tell me
how
your
are you,
love
pal?
is
Let's go,
real.
baby.
You make me smile when I
Haley
think of you.
Coach, how are you?
If I
John
feel
Paul
down when I
Sr.,
am
Larry
blue,
Shope.
I can't
Big old house. Robert Donahue. Robert.
You make me happy.
How are you? The Tammy's in the house. How are you?
You were mine.
Kevin Parker's here. What's up, brother? Mike Mayer. Chris Benninger. What's up, Chris?
I woke up all
What's up,
soaked in
buddy?
sweat, with
How's
chills
everything
running
going,
down my
everybody?
neck.
Good to
I'm
see everybody
crazy from
stopping
just the
in.
thought of you.
Appreciate you. Ray Cruz is
A
here.
long blonde hair and your beautiful
Liar,
smile.
Jack
Your sense
Hinkle,
of humor
Mark,
makes it
what's
all
up, Mark?
worthwhile. Don't make me wait. It's not a
All
funny
fishing
game.
event, baby. Let's go.
You
Yeah,
know
man, did
just
we
what
ever
I
get onto
feel.
him on
Please
Sunday?
tell me your love is
He
real.
put the smackdown on it.
You make me smile when I
Holy
think
cow.
of you. If I am
Man,
down
oh man, that fall bite is starting to warm up. We're going to get into it with you tonight. Talk about some great stuff. Talk about some power fishing for these suckers. Heck with that dragging a bait on the bottom. We're going to power fish for these fall fish as much as we can. We're going to get into that tonight. Got some nice tackle talk for you, and of course, a little bit of tournament talk we're going to run through. Dean Resch is here. Jairi Otto, Michael Gerard. How are you guys, man? Keith Carey, Northeast Iowa. Yeah, baby. Northeast Iowa's in the house. Let's go. Man, oh man, oh man. How's everybody doing tonight? This is Tackle Shop Live. My name is Mike Acord. This is George Acord. And behind the camera is cameraman Nick, as always, although he wasn't here last week. But he was repping the Tackle Shop Live crew and the SFT tackle crew up on Lake Champlain and did very well in his tournament up there, which you guys probably heard about on pre-Tackle Shop Live. But Nick, congratulations, man. 5th place in the tournament and 10th overall in the overall tournament. So, I mean, hell.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
That ain't bad at all, buddy.
I'm not complaining. You know, it was a good showing. Learned a lot. You know, the small little details, Mike.
Ah, man,
you
we
know,
talk about that all the time.
It's just crazy. I was talking about it on pre-Tackle Shop Live about using the drop shot, and it's different when you can start to see these fish, and you can see how they react to things.
Yeah,
whether it was the color of the weight or whether it was the size of the weight. You know, just pretty interesting stuff.
That's cool, man. That's cool. So I take it the that's all right, George. You just walk right in front of everybody.
I'm sorry about that.
He's on a mission.
Yeah, I take it forward facing played a big part in your game.
It did a little bit. I mean, it kept me in areas that were more productive. You know, now sometimes your instincts just go back to wanting to fish the banks.
Yeah.
But luckily those fish for us did move up a little bit. So it was easier to do that with the jerk bait sometimes. But yeah, forward facing definitely helping change the game. You know that.
So this was the first big go around in your new rig. What do you think? How do you like it?
Well, I can tell you it flies. I had the thing up to over 75 miles an hour. It just goes. It goes. But I will say this, and you and George know, you know, first day of the tournament, we had 4+ foot waves, and nothing wants to go that fast in 4+ foot waves unless you want to break everything.
Yeah.
But no, it was a great trip. Everything worked like it was supposed to, and had a great time.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
That's a good point, Nick, because, you know, up here in the Northeast, it doesn't really matter how fast your boat goes.
It really doesn't.
It matters how fast it goes in big waves.
That's right.
You know, you gotta have, when you set a boat up in this part of the world and other parts of the world too. Like I know talking to Kurt Dove when he was in here a few weeks ago and talking about like Lake Rayburn, Sam Rayburn and Toledo Bend, they get like real dangerous. And I know talking to Greg, some of the TVA lakes, when they're pulling water and the wind's bucking them, they get real big, and we're talking the last few weeks with Nick's boat odyssey, talking setup and you really have to be mindful of not how fast your boat goes, but how's it set up for rough water. Can you go miles and miles and miles and big 3 and 4 foot waves, 5 foot waves, and it's a lot of little things, now with hydraulic jack plates, it's just a touch of the button to get the right engine height for the rough water. But little things like battery tie downs, if you don't pay attention to that kind of stuff in your boat, like if you're going up north fishing or if you're on a big water body of water, Chesapeake Bay, Potomac River, and weather's forecast, if you don't take the time to check like your battery tie downs, it's little things like that can really ruin a day.
Mess you up.
And that's a great point, George. And I know you're a stickler for this too. And I am. My dad laughs at me. But when you're in those big waves after the day, I like to make sure everything's tightened back up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going over my bolts and my motor and all that good stuff. I take the time. If I know I'm going to go for a long run, I actually tie my trolling motor down so where it's not flopping around.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said, it's small details because you want to make sure that your equipment works.
Yeah.
And you're doing everything you can.
Yeah. I mean,
somebody's on here right now that knows about it. GDP.
Yeah.
He knows all about it.
Mike, you got your first day of your 3-day weekend on Lake Ontario, right? And you launch and you come out of Chameau Bay and it's just absolutely snotty and you don't put your tie downs on your trolling motor. Well, you might be fishing without one the rest of the weekend because
they don't like that.
If you ever picked up a box, like if your dealer mounted your trolling motor, you're not aware of how heavy it is. If you've ever picked up a box with a trolling motor in it and mounted your own trolling motor, there's some little, you're talking about some rough water rigging. Like Mike and I, and I'm sure Nick, we're doing the big fender washer and double lock nuts on top of a lock washer on every bolt. And, you can say that that's ridiculous, but our trolling motor doesn't come loose on the front of the boat.
No.
Like Nick said, checking bolts, and that means through the transom bolts, which are not always the easiest bolts to reach.
Right.
You're standing on your head, putting the wrench on the bolt, and your buddy's out on the back, tightening up the nut. And, I can't tell you how many times I've been away at a big water venue and have, at the end of the day, when it got big, have somebody parking at the hotel where I'm at with their 250 strapped to their back deck, snapped off the back of the boat. Now, you can say what you want to say, but that does not happen with maintenance. There's no such thing as a motor breaking off of a boat when the bolts are torqued. So, I mean, not just Nick's story about setting up his boat, but it's the little things.
The OCD master GDP says to put 6 bolts on his motor.
On a trolling motor?
No,
on
a main motor.
Oh shit!
A lock motor, a lockdown, a safety lockdown, and a triple and a third.
Good God! I never saw that before.
Well, you don't have to worry about that thing going anywhere, but that's what he does, man. OCD.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm not far behind Greg on that because I'm telling you, every time, I don't care what boat you have.
Yeah.
It seems like every time I go to check those bolts at the transom,
you can get a little turn.
You can always get a little turn out of it. And it drives me nuts because of what you said, George. You've seen stuff that I haven't seen. You've seen people having their boat motor strapped to the back deck
multiple times.
And I don't want to be that. I think if I take care of everything I need to, we'll get through the day.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the reason why we can't.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a tournament on Lake Erie where one of our friends, his motor snapped off the back of his boat, and he lost control, and his boat ended up, his brand new Ranger, ended up upside down on a rock jetty at the entrance to a marina 30 miles from where Blastoff was. And like 12 of us drove there after weigh-in and got this guy's boat off this jetty with giant holes ground through the bottom of the hull, and put the boat on the trailer upside down and strapped the motor to the bottom of the boat and sent him home.
That's bad.
Yeah, he's done.
That's a bad day.
And I'll tell you another thing.
Well, you spend so much time, getting ready for these tournaments, and a lot of times us guys, we just assume our boats are ready to roll, and you drive all the way up there, you spend all that time, and then you do something like that. Your trolling motor gets hit by a wave or something, and it's not mounted properly, and that ruins your whole entire weekend.
Sure.
So you can spend the time, take the extra time, double bolt, triple bolt, put 6 of them on like GDP, whatever it takes, but you don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about your stuff.
2 tie down straps on the trolling motor, one out by the head and one at the, so your brackets say this long, one here and one here. And when you're going on the big ride, lock them down.
You don't have to run them all day long, but when you're making those long runs, you strap it down and hold it tight. Bilge pumps going over, make sure that stuff's all right. All those little things, will save your day. And I'm glad your boat worked out great for you, Nick. That's great.
I appreciate that. I do got to ask you something, George and Mike. Were you hydraulic jack plate guys or no?
No,
we were always manual.
Yeah,
manual. Okay.
Now I'm sure on our next boat we'll go hydraulic, but actually, back when we were buying a lot of boats, Skeeter had a policy that if you blew your motor up and you had a hydraulic jack plate, it could void your warranty.
Wow.
They wouldn't sell them with hydraulic.
You got to be
plates.
careful with them things. They're not. You could trim up too high with them and lose water pressure. But I'll tell you, I rode with some guys with hydraulic jack plates when it was not like super rough but bouncy, and they could get up on top of them and mess with that thing. And when you know what you're doing with them, it's unbelievable how it changes the ride.
Right.
It's just absolutely unbelievable what it does. Puts the boat in a perfect position to cut through those waves, use what the bow is all about, but yet still stay on top of them. And man, it was just it's amazing to ride with those people that know what they're doing with them. But we got a lot of guys here. Sam and Sam's here. GDP's in the house. Thanks for stopping by there, GDP. It's always nice to see you. Jason Shea is here. Johnny Kopp. Yep, we're not drinking that Coors Light at all, Johnny Kopp. But Andre, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you back here again. Frank Garvey's here. Jake Fromm, how are you, Jake? Good to see you, pal. We got a whole nice big old house full of guys here. We appreciate everybody. If you guys can just take the time to like and share and comment on our all of our media, Facebook and YouTube. Share the content. That helps us out a lot. But also check out our TikToks and our Instagram pages as well, and share those with your buddies, because we have different stuff on every venue there. So you guys want to make sure you get on there and check all that stuff out.
You know what, cameraman Nick? I was just sitting here thinking about your boat, and all these graphs that everybody's running now, and I'm sure you've got at least 3 up front.
Yep.
And you probably got 3 on the console.
2.
Well, for now.
Yeah, for now.
But when Mike and I decided that we wanted to learn more about the more modern electronics, we put a bunch of graphs on the front of our Skeeter, and when we located them up there for rough water, I kind of envisioned, like, with the trolling motor down, using that as a water break so that you're not stuffing your boat and ripping your graphs off. So, like, I have mine kind of tucked down behind the trolling motor when it's retracted. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I think that's a good idea, because that trolling motor is going to take that trolling motor's, folded down like that with the bracket and the shaft and the head and everything. That's going to take the brunt of that wave.
Right.
and you're still your grafts are still gonna take a hit, but not like you got a big graft hanging up there and
the full brunt of it.
You stuff a wave and that thing, it's ripping that graft right off.
I would say one thing I am seeing, and it's our own fault, is when you start to go into the 12-inch, 15-inch grafts, it's hard to hide them behind anything.
Right.
So I have 12-inch grafts in the front, so 3 of them, that's a lot of space.
Yeah.
So they're out there in the open. There's not much you can do, but not everybody's going to have that problem, but I can see exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's just one thing that I thought about, when we were rigging that boat up, and that was just kind of like part of that whole.
I like what you're thinking there, because I'm watching my graphs this week. And if you watch the Bassmasters or wherever, and you watch the guys fly down the lake, their graphs are taking a beating in the front.
Yeah. You can see them flopping around, man. It's absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
I mean, even with those great, holders for them, the high,
the gimbal brackets,
the heavy duty ones and all that are still flopping around, taking a beating. It's amazing.
The other aspect of that is mounting your electronics mount to the boat. The little screws that we used to use back in the day,
man,
that's no longer in play. You now need to through bolt.
Yeah.
You need a washer.
Yeah, with all that weight on there, it's
on
amazing.
the back side of that to firm that up.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. Holy
or else,
mackerel.
guess what? You might just rip your whole bracket right off the boat.
Yeah, 10 grand just flew in the lake.
That would suck.
I think it was last time the Elite Series was at Champlain. Not this year, obviously, but the previous. I think if I remember the story correctly, and I might have the names wrong, but I think Seth Fighter had 2 grafts ripped off the front of his boat, 2 hummingbirds.
What, up at up
Champlain?
On Champlain.
Yeah,
really.
I want to say he won that tournament or did really good in that tournament, and running back in to make the weigh-in, he lost his grafts, his hummingbirds.
Missed the timing on one.
Well, it happens. I don't care how good you are.
Well, it's funny you say that, because my daddy's been watching a lot of YouTube, and he's like, I've been watching Zaldane, and he said on the St. Lawrence, I guess he was going to go out in the lake and it was going to be rough.
Yeah.
He didn't even put his grafts on until he got to his spot out there.
Well, sure.
So that was interesting.
That was smart.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, with this story I was telling about Seth Fighter losing his grafts, a local fisherman found him.
Floating.
I guess they were floating, or else he was scuba diving and found them, or washed up on the shore.
He wanted them waypoints.
Yeah.
But he found the grafts and got a hold of them and got the grafts back to him.
Dang.
I don't know if they were toast or whatever. I don't know how long you can float grafts in Lake Champlain. I'm not thinking real long.
That'd be a great thing to find out if they did work. That would be something for the company.
I'm sure they didn't.
Anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
Kenny Hodgins is here. How are you, buddy? Jason Ryder, Bruce Millard. What's up, man? And Freddie Mackey's here. What do you say, Fred? Good to see you, buddy. St. Cress is back in the house. Good to see you, St. Cress. And John Schnook's here. So, all right. So we're going to get this thing rolling. We're going to do a little section we like to call Tackle Talk. Yeah, baby. We are a tackle shop, so we love to talk and play with tackle. That's what we do here at Susquehanna Fishing Tackle. And I tell you, it's been like Christmas in here. I keep saying it, but it's been like Christmas in here a lot in the last couple of weeks. What are we looking at here, George? What came in new? What's hot? What's happening?
Well, I'm kind of all over the place tonight. I got new and old.
Okay.
We
always have some old stuff to bring
I do.
up.
I have some old school stuff here that has a little seasonal meaning.
Yeah.
I got some new product.
Yeah.
That's brought out, obviously. That's a weekly thing.
Yeah, well, hit me, buddy.
But
bring it.
I got a couple things. I want to start off with some line. And Shimano is getting into the fluorocarbon game. Now, as many of you may or may not know, I'm sure a lot of you do know, Shimano owns Power Pro, so they're kind of like
in the line game already.
I mean, I would say like the leaders in the braid game.
Yeah.
They pretty much own that segment. But now they're getting into the fluorocarbon game, and they're coming up against Sunline. They're coming up against Seagar.
Mm-hmm.
This is not going to be like the braid. I mean, the braid, when they came into the braid game, they set the tone. They set the standard, and then they pushed the innovation, and their braid is arguably as good or better than any braid made. Having said that, there's a lot of awesome braids out there.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, when you say braid, most people say Power Pro.
They definitely are leading the game in that right now. Yeah, for sure.
Well, what's cool about this Mastiff fluorocarbon, one of the things I really like about it is the spool is parallel wound. So when the line's wound on the spool at the factory, it's perfectly, like, you can rub your finger on this and feel it's perfectly parallel wound. So what I like about that on a premium fluorocarbon is as it's sitting in the store and on the warehouse shelf, it's not wound crisscrossed where, every one of those wraps is putting little indents in the wraps underneath it.
Yeah.
So you get that smooth, nice flow. This is a premium fluorocarbon, so it's not inexpensive. Let's listen. It starts at the 4-pound test. 4, 5, and 6 is $22.99. So, I mean, it's not out of line, but it's not a bargain. It's premium. And actually, if I could go sidebar on this,
I mean, what other than that, what makes it?
Well, I want to point out a little thing about the price.
Oh, okay.
And here's an interesting way to think about the price of fluorocarbon. This is $22.99 to $30.99 for the 25, I think it is, which is not out of line. You go back there and look at Sunline Shooter. You can add, 10% to that. You go back and look at Tatsu. You can add 25% to that.
Yeah.
But when you buy a premium fluorocarbon, and this is the point I want to make. When you buy a premium fluorocarbon and you spool your reel up, that line is good for as long as you have enough of it on your reel. You will never find yourself having to change that line out because it's breaking or because it's fraying. I mean, if it's going to fray, making contact with cover, but like just breaking down, and if to illustrate my point, if you buy some of these price point fluorocarbons and, I mean, there's every brand has them, some of them go back many, many years. One brand that I'll talk about rhymes with Vanish. That's not going to last on your reel for very long. It's a fine line to use. Don't get me wrong, but there's a reason it costs what it costs, and you're going to have to change it out more often. I'm not slamming anybody. I'm making a point. Like, it's okay to go with a bargain fluorocarbon. There's plenty of them out there. We carry a lot of them, but know that you're going to change that line out more often. Premium fluorocarbons, I'm going to say that for as long as they're on your reel and you got enough line on there, you're good. I've literally spooled up flipping reels with 18 and 20 pound premium fluorocarbon brands and fished them into the next year because I didn't see the need to change them out. I'm flipping. I'm not really casting a long ways. Other lines, some of the techniques you're using, twist the line all up and the line takes a beating because you're dragging it on the bottom, and the environments that you fish in, some of the north waters with the zebra mussels, you're fishing rocky rivers. I get that. You're fishing tidal water with barnacles. You're going to go through a lot more line. But for the average Joe, a line like this might seem expensive to you. You're going to get 2 fills out of your box. That's the other point.
200 yards.
That's 2 fills. So, establish your backing on your reel.
We're big on that. Putting a knot, making sure your knot's right.
Establish it.
Yep.
And then, when you need to put line on again, strip it down to your knot, tie it on. You're going to be topped off perfect.
Yep.
Even if you have to literally like fill your reel
and walk it out.
Fill your reel up with
worth doing it
with a price point mono. And then, if you got an 8-pound mono on there and the diameters are similar, go by the diameter. Mm-hmm. If the diameters are similar, walk it out.
Yeah.
100 yards, it'll take a half of this spool.
Yeah, people laugh at you when we tell them to do that. They're like, well, how much line do you put on? Well, if you don't really have a good eye to see how much to fill your lineup with, which George and I, we've done so many thousands of them over the years, that we can get it real close. But yeah, walk it out. This doesn't hurt. Walk it out.
So guys, the other interesting thing about this fluorocarbon, and I do not know this to be by my own experience, but Shimano is touting what they call nano armor.
Mm-hmm. I like that word.
Okay.
Nano armor.
It's part of the...
Sounds like badass to me.
It's part of the sales process, but, nano armor means that there is little tiny microscopic ridges on the surface of this line that help to cinch that knot up and give it a bite. It doesn't feel like that to the human touch, but that's what they're saying. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're in the process of fishing it. Don't have a lot of time on it yet. So far,
we'll come back and let you know.
Yeah. So far, it's right up there with the top 5 brands. So, Mastiff, check it out. If you're
it's only available in 200-yard spools right now.
200-yard spools.
They'll probably come out with a bulkier spool if it, once they get it going.
I'm sure it comes in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 25-pound tests. Now, I'm sorry if you wanted 17 and we only have 16 and 18. We do have some other brands with 17. I'm sorry if you wanted 15 and we only have 14 and 16. But all joking aside, one of the most important things that you can do when you're shopping for line is look at that figure right there. And that is the diameter. Now, this is in millimeters. So you'll have to keep that in mind when you're looking at your diameters. Most of your Japanese fluorocarbons will be in millimeters. We get it's hard to focus on that. I get it. But anyways, look at your diameters. Same thing with all your lines, braids, monos. Look at your pound test, but really look at your diameters.
Yeah, it's drastically all over the place. Different lines, different companies, different lines within the same company, because they're doing something a little different with the line. You'll see different variations of diameters within a company itself. Some of them, they want a little bit more abrasion resistance. They may be a little thicker. Some of them, they want, more a limper line, something for more finessey. It'll be a little skinnier. So check them out.
Yeah. You'll see like giant diameter differences in mono. One of the oldest tricks in the book on the mono business was to have like the most brute force 8-pound test ever made. The problem was the diameter of it was equal to everyone else's 10.
10, yeah.
So basically they put 10 on an 8-pound label, or an 8-pound label on a 10-pound spool, however you want to look at that.
Well,
which is fine.
Great sales point on that was, hey man, you can fish a 6, which is the same strength as an 8.
Right. Which is fine, but educate yourself online, pay attention to diameters, and on your fluorocarbons, please don't fill your spool from empty. Back your spools, get 2 fills out of a pack. Think of it like this. The bottom half of that spool of line will never see the light of day. So, if you want to put,
$24 worth of line on, go right ahead.
$11.50 worth of line on the bottom of your half of your spool, by all means. But get your backing knots right. Actually, Sunline sells they sell a backing line.
Mm.
They sell a backing line on a bulk spool, and it's just nothing more than a reasonably priced mono, an inexpensive mono, but it's a little thicker, so it fills the spool up quicker. So you can kind of calculate it in your head. I'll give you the pro secret on guessing on that. The pro secret. So if you're fishing a standard size bass, we're going to talk bass size reels here. It's a little different on big saltwater gear, but a standard size bass reel like that, right? If you look at a lot of these reels, and you're not going to probably be able to see this on the camera. We're running a 65 by 200 mega pipe lens on there, and if we had a little bit different lens, we'll be able to read that for you. But there's
what the hell?
There's lines on the bottom of the spool.
265 megapipe.
That was expensive. There's lines on the bottom of that spool. Those are yardage rings. So it's each one of those lines is a third of the spool. So if you're going to put 8-pound test fluorocarbon on here and you don't want to do all that walking it out, if you come up to, like, if you look at your yardage on here and you look at 8-pound test, this reel holds 220 yards of 8-pound test. So basically you need 120 yards of backing. Well, that's, a little more than half the spool. So you got your yardage rings on there, and that's going to get you close enough. Another little trick with fluorocarbon, it's okay to be a tiny bit low on your fill. That line will behave a little nicer for you. It's okay not to be absolutely dead nuts perfect on your lip. So if you're just a 1/16 of an inch below where you want to be, that's fine. You'll get great performance on there. So that's a little kind of like little trick of the trade there for filling reels, where you're not like, getting crazy. Just kind of look at your yardage on your spool. Say, okay, I need about a half a spool of 8 for backing. You got rings on there, 1/3, 2/3 full. Go a little bit past that third ring, and you're good to go.
Good to go.
Okay?
Yep.
So that is some line trickery for you.
Yeah.
We'll break down on the Mastiff.
Yeah.
And we will bring back a progress report as the next couple weeks unfold.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Somebody asked us what line were we going to try out. Well, we're going to get some 8-pound and some 16, and we're going to throw that stuff around.
Well, right now we're throwing some 8.
Yeah.
But
maybe the 14. We got some stuff coming.
Yeah.
We're going to mess around with it.
It'll be all
try it out.
Trust me.
And Tim Maynard, yeah, absolutely. Price point is like the lens that George just said. So
they're out of stock right now. I got the last one. All right. Let's talk about some sunglasses. So this year at ICAST, Costa unveiled the King Tide. So you got your King Tides here. I'll model them for you. King Tide 8. There's an 8 and a 6. This is the 8. It's the bigger base. Okay. The 6 has more of a curve to it. The 8 is I'm not going to use the word universal, but it's going to fit a lot of people. So what they did was they came out with like the ultimate pair of sunglasses. They have all kinds of vents in the frame, in the nose pieces. They have side shields that are removable. So if you want to go out for a night on the town and you don't want side shields, you can just snap them right off of there. They just kind of pry loose and just, they're on a pivot. You just kind of squeeze them together. Real easy to take off. Vent. 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 vent, 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 vent. Very vented, which is good.
Yeah, help with the fogging,
especially when it's hot.
Yeah,
you know, and it's got a channel here that'll carry as that sweat runs down your face. It'll carry the sweat away. It carries it away and it drips it off back here, so you're not getting all that sweat. You know, you're going to get some sweat in your eyes, but it's very, very minimized with those channels. They look cool, and they come in a blue mirror, a green mirror. They come in a sunrise yellow. I really like the sunrise yellow for those early mornings, cloudy, overcast days, great sight fishing lens. Okay, and they come in a green mirror, which is going to be that kind of lens. So those are the three lenses. There's a couple frame colors. This is a matte black. This is a pearl, a black pearl, matte black. Pretty cool stuff. They're the most expensive Costas I've ever seen. They're $348.99 each. So I don't know if they were just trying to make a statement or whatever, but I'll tell you what.
Well, I mean, you know, it gives you a lot of, you know, they thought about all the problems that they're out there with glasses, and they fixed it all. And they made it so that you can wear them a lot for all different situations, not just a fishing glass. You can wear it. So, you know, really, if you want a pair of glasses that they fixed all the problems with, that's the ones.
I think what they did was, like most companies, like if you come in and see our Costa display, we have about 75 different pairs on display, different models, unique models, in quite a few frame styles, colors, and what have you. If you come in and look at that, you know, they're awesome glasses. But I think what they did was they said, you know what, let's just make a primo glass with all kinds of venting and removable. The case is like this big. It's a huge case. Yeah. So that's new. Also from Costa, we have the new tail fin. The new tail fin. This is a glass lens version. It also comes in a poly lens. I'll model those for you. They're a little small for me. But the tail fin, a little more streamlined. Okay. This is the blue mirror glass. Obviously, they come in green mirror. They come in gray with a silver mirror, gray with a blue mirror, copper with a green mirror, copper with a silver mirror, and sunrise silver. So they come in 5 tints, multiple frame colors, tail fin. Average is going to be about $240 for the glass lens. Okay. Generally speaking, in Costa, the poly lenses are about 100 less, 90 to 100 less. So wanted to highlight a couple new models of Costa, which, you know, we just got our King Tides in. We haven't had them in since ICAST. They brought them out and they sold out immediately. So we got some in. We have more coming. We only have a few pairs in stock. We have more coming. We do not sell Costa online. So if you're interested in shopping with us for Costa, please either call or come by the store and you can try them on. We have a very nice display of glasses right now. So I wanted to show you guys that. What do you think of them, Nick?
Here's a question.
Are they badass or what?
Well, I remember trying them on at ICAST, and I love them.
The King 8s?
The King 8s. Now, you said there was a 6 as well, but I can't remember if I had the 6s on or the 8s, but I loved them. They felt nice.
Yeah.
You could feel that
the air,
which I like.
That's what
I didn't like the 6s.
That's what I noticed right away.
I didn't like the 6s. I like the 8s. I like those tail fins. I wear a lot of the Pro Series. So when you get into the Pro Series, this is where they started with that channel, the sweat channel. That started on the Pro. So they do like Blackfin Pro, Reefton Pro, Jose Pro, Tuna Alley Pro, Fish Pro. You get the big thing I like about these is the adjustable nose piece. See how I got those kind of pressed in a little bit? If you've ever had your glasses and you went out and bought yourself some nice glasses and you're fishing and you're doing this, pushing your glasses up all the time. With these, when that happens, you just take that little nose piece and you just kind of pinch it together. It readjusts it. You get them where they ride there right. Forget about it. So this is the Blackfin Pro. I really like this frame here. Even with all the sunscreen and everything that's on them. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I love them. I love the glasses. I love Kosas. I love all different styles and frames. I got a bunch of different ones. But, we get a ton of questions about lens color. A million questions about lens color. And I'd like to know how you guys would answer lens color for the glasses that you wear. The glass that you wear, 1 glass, 2 glasses, 3 glasses. What do you have? That's what I'd like to hear. Nick.
So one of the things that you and George had talked about when you used to guide or have people on your boat, and I strongly agree, is that people should always wear glasses.
Yeah, always.
When you're going down the lake. And what happens when you have an overcast day where you don't want to have the color that George has on right now, or, the sun glass.
Yeah.
That color, and George, you're going to have to tell me what color it is, but it's the yellow tint.
Sunrise silver mirror.
That's one of the most underrated colors that are out there, because on those early mornings when you're blasting off or anything like that, have a couple pair of that color in there, because if you're or somebody doesn't have glasses, that's the perfect color to use. I think that color is just a great color to have.
Well, early in the morning, in the evening, a lot of times Mike and I will get out after work and we'll fish till the last minute. And, if we're out in our jet boat, we have some sketchy little path we have to run. You kind of got to see real good. You put them on, boom, brightens everything up. It highlights. If you're a trout fisherman and you're fishing under the canopy of the trees, you might not think about this unless you're a trout fisherman or a steelhead fisherman. It could be a bluebird, sunny, beautiful day, but when them trees are all canopied over like that, you got a lot of shadows and shade on the water. The last thing you want is gray lenses. You either want to have sunrise silver or copper. Now, keep in mind, in Costa, copper comes as copper green, or copper silver mirror. And you'll see some slightly different views through the copper depending on the mirror, but generally speaking, copper's copper. So to answer the questions that we're getting here, in my opinion, the single most all-around universal lens is the copper. Now, I like it with the green mirror. Reason why? If I'm out and it's a bright, sunny day and I'm fishing with somebody else, I'm not on my boat where I keep multiple pairs. I'm going to take 1 pair. I don't like to bring a bunch of luggage onto somebody's boat. I pack light. Your glasses, if you're laying them around on somebody else's boat, you don't have a spot. You can get them scratched up, dinged up, whatever. So I bring 1 pair. I always bring this. And that green mirror, if I get that bright sun, this is reflecting. This mirror will reflect light. So it actually makes this copper a little more versatile in that bright sun. The ultimate bright sun lens, which is why you see your saltwater guys fishing a lot of blue mirror. The only way they get any relief from the sun is if it's cloudy out. But a lot of times it's sunny, it's hot. You're getting a tremendous, and this is what I want you guys to all think about. You're getting a tremendous amount of reflection off the water on a lake, on a river, in the ocean, whatever. That's why when you're fishing, the backs of your hands take such a beating, right? If you're a veteran fisherman, you got all these little sunspots on the back of your hands because you don't wear your sunscreen, you don't wear your sun gloves until it's too late, and you can't turn father's time's clock back. So that's where this comes in on the bright the bright sun. So in my book, the number one most versatile lens color is copper with a mirror on it. I like the green mirror, but you can also do the silver mirror. If you don't like mirrors, get straight copper. The number one low light lens, and really the only one, is sunrise silver. You can just see the difference in the light transmission in those lenses right there, right? And then your darkest is your gray. And when you put a mirror on the gray, it even gets more because it reflects. So you can do a silver, gray, or a blue gray. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I know it's a little crazy because they have so many offerings.
For the people that are bed fishing, which one do you prefer?
Either the sunrise silver or the copper. Now, I will say this. You may have to rotate through a few lens colors, even if you're just a shallow water guy and you like to see grass or tree underwater or rock cover. It might be, it might vary. And let's face it, everybody's eyes are a little different. I feel like my eyes are extremely sensitive to bright sun. Maybe I see people. I fish with a good friend of mine, Joe Evering. He keep his sunglasses off most of the day. He's a slave to the fashion. He doesn't want those raccoon eyes. He's a pretty boy. I'm not, it's that's how he lives his life. But I couldn't do it. I'd go blind. So,
well, you know how bad it is. We can run up the river and you're like, damn it, forgot my sunglasses in the boat, man.
Turn the boat around.
I mean, if it's 10 miles away, you're turning around.
Yeah,
that's how bad it is.
You're not fishing without glasses.
If you're running with, like George was running with me the other day on Sunday, right?
At a moment,
we're rolling up through the river, and he's like, jumps up, he taps me on the back, he says, "Man, we got to turn around. I forgot my glasses." And I'm like, and I know right away, man, I'm wheeling the freaking wheel right away. And then he goes, "Oh, wait, they're on my head. All right, we're good." And I had to come out. But that's, that you have to, in that situation, you got to turn around and go back.
You got to have them.
And he was in my boat.
Normally I'd be wearing them, but I was kneeled down on the floor of the boat behind Mike using them as the human console.
But, the other thing to look at too is water clarity. You got dirty water, you got, clear water, and different lenses help you with that. I guess my point with the question was there's no right answer for it. The guys that are really super serious about fishing, they'll have all of them, and they might have multiple in that. So the elite pros, they have 10, 12, 14 pairs of glasses, and and every shade known to mankind, because they need that for them. But for most of us, if you get, just a couple, that lighter one for the low light and something for the high sun, then you're going to be good. You're going to be well off. But one pair of glasses, if you only have to, I think George is right with the copper lens. But even still, man, I just think that, the grays really play a big role. And most of the times when the sun's really out, that gray really, for me, is what I wear a lot of, is the gray in that high sun.
I got another tip for you. When you're fishing, wear them.
Yeah. Well,
in my life of fishing, I've been hit in the middle of the lens 3 different times with bullet weights and lures.
Yeah.
Coming back from snags, coming back from somebody else in the boat doing something stupid.
Right there.
And
look at that.
I would hate to think.
Look at that, Nick. That's a scar right there.
I would hate to think what would happen.
Yeah.
If I didn't have my glasses on. Other people on my boat over the years have been hit in the center of their lens. So, I kind of have a rule on my boat that if you're fishing, you're wearing glasses.
I agree with you, George. I had a person on my boat. We were doing 62 up Lake Raystown the year of the cicadas.
Oh,
and one hit him directly in the eye. Ooh. As far as his glasses. And if he wouldn't have glasses on,
oh yeah,
I mean,
you'd be taking him back to the hospital.
So I've seen it a few times.
Yeah, I agree with you guys totally. If we're going to be going down the lake, you better have some kind of glasses on.
It's a safety concern, and I'll tell you, it stuck with me for many, many years. I remember back in the early days of Costa when we first got involved with them. A story was told of guys fishing a blue water event, and they had a big marlin hooked up, and they were wiring them, and they had a 400-pound test swivel break in half.
Damn.
And half the swivel under all that tension came back and hit that guy in the middle of his coastal lens. And the lens shattered. If you've ever seen like a car windshield that's just shattered into a trillion pieces, but none of them, they're all intact. That's what coastal lenses do. The lens shattered. The impact was like a bullet hitting it because it was there's a 400-pound swivel that broke in half.
God almighty.
And hit him.
That's like a bullet.
Like this. Tunk. And that lens shattered into thousands and thousands of pieces and stayed intact and protected that eye.
Yeah, for sure.
And that stuck with me. And, you know, I can remember vividly a couple of guide trips back in the day where I've had clients, you know, doing stuff that was suggested not to do.
Yeah.
And the bullet weight come back and hit me in the lens or hit them in the lens. So, you know, from a safety perspective,
absolutely.
From enhancing your fishing experience, I didn't want to make this whole entire freaking thing about sunglasses, but it kind of happens.
You know, it's a kind of a hot topic because we get so many questions on it, and you brought up glasses, so it was like a question you had to make about it.
Yeah, I love it.
But you know, David Schottlemeyer asked me what glasses I wear. I'll be honest with you. I wear a gray lens a lot of the times. You know, I wear a gray silver mirror. You know, in a lot of times when I go out, that's what I wear. Now, the other day when we were out, I had those on. I didn't have another pair with me, and it definitely hurt my vision as far as seeing what I needed to see. But you know, that's where that amber would have came in real nice to put that on, or even the sunrise yellow. That sunrise yellow is exceptional, but I didn't have them with me, and
that was a good sunrise yellow day. It rained all day long.
It was,
and it was really dark.
It was dark. So, you know, that particular day. But I wear my grays most of the time. I really do. I always wear grays. I just like grays, but. You know, there's a lot of times where I won't even put a pair of sunglasses on for a little bit in the morning because, you know, that's all I have with me or whatever. And I wish I had my other ones with me, but.
Yeah. So anyways, if you want to check out some of the new frames, come on down to the shop. We have the King Tide 8 and the tailfin in stock.
Yep.
Costa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else you got there?
Well, you know, last week we talked about the Shimano Stratic M. We did a little touch up on that because, you know, we did a breakdown on it, but we got not millions. That's an exaggeration. Bold. We got.
Like you haven't been exaggerating all night?
No.
With that lens
I never
thing?
Exaggerate. That was a Binford 6000 multi-bip lens. Look it up. So anyways, I thought, you know, Ford versus Chevy, Shimano versus Daiwa. Let's bring out the competitor's reel that matches it. And it's the Tatula. We you know, and we did a little breakdown on this a while ago, but we're going to do a refresher. Tatula MQ. MQ stands for Monaco. That's this big plate right here. See that big circular plate right there, Nick? That is the side plate of the reel. It's not a traditional unscrew the side plate. It's unscrew the plate to get into the gears. It's keeps it very Not sealed. We hate to use the word sealed because somebody will find a way to put water in there, but it's sealed. And it's also a structural thing because you don't have the side plate that can move, with torque and whatnot. The other thing that's interesting about this reel, the main shaft. So when you turn the handle on a spinning reel, you're turning a drive gear that sits right inside here. Your handle actually threads into it. And the drive gear has the teeth on the inside. And it meshes with what's called a pinion gear. So when you turn the drive gear, you spin the pinion gear. The rotor is bolted to the pinion gear, so that's why that goes around in a circle. So this direction gets changed into this direction. Well, what's cool is on this reel, the spool shaft, which strokes the spool up and down, the spool's attached to the spool shaft, it goes through the pinion gear and attaches to a little linkage back here so that it travels up and down very properly aligned and what have you. Well, on this reel, it makes no contact with that pinion gear, so it's friction free, and you can feel it. They have what they call the air rotor. It has a very low startup inertia. The body material is a synthetic. I don't know what's actually. It's called Zion 5. It's like 6.2 ounces for this reel. Super rigid. Some of these graphite reels, you can torque them. Imagine what a big fish is doing. This is super rigid. So check it out. Tatula MQ. What's cool about this reel is 6 sizes from a 1,000, which would be appropriate for trout and panfish, to a 4,000. No. Yeah, 4,000. My bad. Which is appropriate for, big line. You want to fish big fluorocarbon on a spinning reel? Get a 4,000. You're doing some light tackle saltwater? Get a 4,000. And they're all $199.99. So that is the Tatula MQ in the Ford versus Chevy lineup. Last week we did Shimano Stratic. This week we did the matching Tatula MQ. And I think we're going to keep this theme up for a little while.
Well, what's really cool about that, George, is the technology that they did with that with the Monaco body and changing the way that the gear and the drive shaft and all that kind of stuff goes on in there, and the torque that you get out of that reel now. It's just a lot of innovation that you're seeing out of Daiwa.
It's a nice reel.
That they've always been big time innovators, but they're really pushing out some great stuff. And the nice thing about that reel is they're pulling that body all the way down in their lineups. Every year they keep adding another one into the lineup. So it's a special.
They do that body in aluminum too.
Yeah. It's a special body. It's a special design. It really, really elevated their reel game a lot in the spinning reel market. So
let's face it. Shimano and Daiwa, for example, they design their own products, they manufacture their own products, and they do a top down.
Yeah.
Shimano, Daiwa, Ford Chevy, the Titans. They do a top down. I mean, they send guys out with a freaking spinning reel to catch a 600-pound tuna.
Yeah.
And find out what doesn't work. And then they fix that. And then they find out what doesn't work the next time. And then they fix that, and they innovate, and they change. And then materials become available, and they mirror each other. Okay. But like Mike said, this Monaco body's going all the ways down through the line now.
It's just it's a function that
it's top down.
It makes work. It's something that it's
better.
It's better than what they have. So they're trickling it down, and it's so important for that. And
and both companies do that. Shimano did it, with what they called X-Ship. We talked about how they supported the pinion gear to keep it from binding.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Did that a long time ago.
Pinion gear torques, spool shaft binds on it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't have that. But, without getting into like a history of what they do, as bass fishermen, we benefit from what some guy with a giant popper hooked up to a giant bluefin tuna learned a couple years ago. And we benefit from that. And our benefit is super smooth, super light, super long wearing. So we can spend $200, which is no small sum, but we can fish this reel for 15 years. Okay?
Yeah.
You know what? You'll long since have forgot about the $200 before you're unhappy with that reel. And, you know, when you buy a bargain reel, you long remember what you paid for it because you're always unhappy with it because you fish too hard. So, you know, take and bite the bullet up front. And this is a prime example for $199 of a family of reels. And I wanted to highlight them tonight. A lot of times when I'm trying to come up with some tackle items here, I don't always have a lot of ideas on it because I'm busy a lot. So a lot of times I go by what a lot of people are asking me. And I'm like, oh, a lot of people asked me about this reel this week and last weekend. I don't know why, but it just cycled up. Maybe because we got a bunch of them in stock. I don't know. But that is our reel for tonight. I like to do a reel. Sometimes I like to do a reel and a rod, you know. But I'm going to do some old school now.
Love me some old school.
This is the
a lot of guys on here love that old school.
Custom hog collar.
Good God almighty. I can't believe you're showing that.
This spinnerbait, well, we've been selling it for 25 years, so I don't think anybody's...
we don't need anybody else throwing that thing, George.
This spinnerbait right here is made for us by Hog Collar, and it's nothing more than the paint on the head and the color of the skirt. This is our green pumpkin spinnerbait that, you know, came to be back in the 90s from a group of guides on the Susquehanna River, and it turns out this son of a gun will flat out catch them. Now, why am I showing it to you now? It's primarily a spring bait, you know, the Colorado-Indiana combination. But now we're talking more about the double willow, and I'm talking about when you get that gnarly, nasty wind, rain, your lake gets a little dirty, your river rises up a little bit, your tidal water, you know, gets a little dinged up. You got all kinds of nasty weather. But, you know, you're a badass, so you suit up and go out. Well, if you take this spinnerbait with you and you put a chartreuse trailer on it, just a chartreuse trailer, and I've actually done this just by taking literally like the back half of a trick worm and putting it on there, or a split tail or a grub. In those nasty, gnarly conditions in the fall. Now, in the spring, it's a whole different setup. But in the fall, only when you get those conditions, this is a bad boy right here. So this is the Hog Collar Green Pumpkin, $7.59. Premium. It's a hog collar. Okay, it's got premium wire, premium vibration. Everything's premium. Gold-plated blades. This ain't no joke. Great hook.
Badass.
Hog collars are awesome. Enough said.
I would also carry with you Zoom Fat Albert June Bug grub.
And that's an awesome setup too.
Green pumpkin purple.
That's an awesome setup too.
Get the net, Bobby.
Particularly in the spring. That's an awesome setup.
Anytime.
Last but not least on the tackle talk before we move on to some early fall power fishing talk, it's getting into jerkbait season. And this is one that we got involved with last year, OSP. And this is their, I guess it's pronounced Varuna. Varuna. That color's called Tasty Shed. Oh my goodness. What's cool about this jerkbait, other than, you know, it's JDM, so it's premium hooks, premium finish, premium everything. But what's cool about this jerkbait is the weight system is tungsten balls, tungsten beads. So the weight transfer is tungsten beads, long casting, but the tungsten gives it a different sound. When you're jerking that thing and you hear it, it has a different rattle to it than almost any other jerkbait that you mess with. I don't know if it's a kind of plastic and the tungsten. I don't know. It does have a split ring on the nose, and it's 3 hooks. Check it. It's a little pricey. It's $24.99. I'm not going to kid you, but it's a great jerkbait. And there's 6 or 7 colors. You can check them out, sfttackle.com. And that, boys, is my long-winded tackle talk for tonight.
All right.
And I hope everybody enjoyed it. I really do.
Oh, they do. They love it.
Everybody
loves it.
I see we're at record-setting numbers online, so it must have been great.
Everybody loves tackle talk. And you know what? All of our people, when they come on here to Tackle Shop Live, they are tackle junkies. Everybody's a tackle junkie. They want to learn more about tackle, know more about tackle, and this is the great venue to do it in.
I did want to say also a heads up, PSA, public service announcement. TRD gobies back in stock.
Nice.
There was 3 or 4 of the hot colors that were out.
You're back in.
Mr. Z-Man sent a big old truck here today.
We got a big Z-Man truckload in.
The TRD goby, there was like 4 hot colors.
What's that head too that everybody was wanting? That offset hook head, the finesse
bullet.
Yeah, finesse bullet. They're back in stock too. So
everything's back in stock.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, this is great, man. We got Chris Benninger in the house, and everybody's been commenting. We appreciate you very much,
boys. We got a birthday shout out too.
Yeah, we got a hellacious birthday shout out.
We got a birthday shout out.
Now, I never would have guessed that this man was 50.
50.
I never would have guessed it. Never would have guessed it.
I don't know. Is there 2 birthday shout outs on here?
Yeah.
The one I got's for Charlie Esterly.
Yeah, 50 years old.
50 years old.
50 years old,
That's
Charlie.
young.
I'm telling you, the guy doesn't look over 30. I don't know how he does it.
30?
He's unbelievable.
I was going to say he doesn't look a day over 60.
That's mean.
Why
would you say that?
I'm just saying that.
No.
But
looks like a young man. And
I'm willing to bet Charlie Esterly is watching this show while he's rigging his rods up for day 2 of the Toyota Series on the Potomac River.
I don't know.
No?
Mm-mm.
You don't think so?
Nope.
You don't think he's fishing?
No. He's from
I thought he was fishing a tournament.
Charlie, where are you from?
Wrong Esterly.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah, you're talking Daryl Esterly.
Yeah, you're talking Daryl.
He is fishing a tournament.
Is Charlie Esterly any relationship?
He might be.
All right. Well, whoever you are, Charlie Esterly, happy birthday.
Yeah, Charlie's on here every week. He's from out west.
Okay.
Out west somewhere. Listen, Charlie, happy birthday to you, buddy.
50.
The shit goes bad from here on out, buddy. That's all I got to say.
Not true.
It just gets bad.
Not true.
You know, it's things start falling off you, bro. Don't worry about it. It's all normal. You still can fish. But happy birthday to you. Just keep your things attached to you.
It's all normal.
It's all normal, man. When things start falling off you, it's all good, bro. You're gonna be fine. Happy birthday, man. We love having you here, and I hope you have a wonderful birthday. So 50. That's a mile marker right there. Okay, let's get into it.
I don't see the big point. I don't see the big deal.
Yeah, it's 50. Some people take it hard. Some people don't. We didn't even bat an eye over 50.
Charlie's probably out right now watching.
I think we drank 2 cases of beer on my 50th birthday.
Charlie's probably out there watching this on his iPad and cutting down a giant tree with an axe. You know what I mean?
He probably is. I'm telling you. Doesn't look a year.
Oh, he was here yesterday, he said.
Yeah, he was. Absolutely. I know, Charlie. Just got George.
Happy birthday, Charlie.
Okay. Well, if I wish I would have known it was your birthday yesterday, we really would have got on you. Okay, we're going to get into it right now. We're going to talk a little fall fishing. Yeah, he even said hi to you in your office, George.
Fall power fishing.
Fall power fishing. We were talking about it the other day, and we were like, what do you want to talk about? And we were like, well, you You want to get, specific on a jerk bait, season's coming, a fluke. And we're like, you know what? This is power fishing time of the year. This is the time of year where you don't want to bust out a tube, and you don't want to bust out a Ned rig, and you don't want to drag something around. This is the time of year where you want to power fish. And we love power fishing beyond all means. I mean, that's what we start out with. It's not until the very last moment till we really dig down and have to bust out the tube or something like that, or a Texas rig worm or a drop shot. That has to be proven to us over a period of time until we go through this progress. And the progress just isn't a jerk bait. It's a lot of different things. So we thought we'd get into some of the different lures and some of the different techniques that we use in this early fall period of time to cover water, number one, and to find the right fish, number two. And that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes on here. First of all, the variety of waters that you can be fishing. You can be fishing, a grass fishery. You can be fishing tidal water. You can be fishing a reservoir with no grass, a reservoir with. So a lot of this stuff some of this stuff is gonna be dependent on your situation, right? But to me, when you start getting into the very, very early stages of fall like this, when your nights are getting cooled off a little bit, your water temperature is dropping a little bit, a couple things are happening. Bait fish are starting to move. They are starting to move. They could be migrating, like to sea.
Yep, going back in the backs of the creeks.
In the case of like a baby American shad or a herring that's on a river that's connected to tidal water. They could be making that migration. They could be just shad in a reservoir that are moving towards creeks.
Yep,
they can be all kinds of bait fish, but they're starting to move and they're getting into little groups, and that is doing the same thing to the fish.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the problem with it is that every day the fish are moving with the bait. So when, staying with the fish is really hard to do this time of year. So you have to have baits that you can throw that cover a lot of water. And that's part of our power fishing gig. We're covering a lot of water. We're throwing these baits to represent what we're going after, which is bait fish. And, you have to have a completely open mind. And we always say, every day you go fishing, you have to have a clean slate, and you have to go out there and figure out what the bite is.
Yeah. The other thing that's challenging is a lot of things are going on at the same time. You do have fish that are already in the backs of the creeks. You have fish that are out at the mouths of the creeks. You have fish that are still on the main river or on the main lake. You have fish that are, very much relating to grass still. So, I mean, there's a lot of different, don't get locked into one scenario.
So let's run through some of the baits, George, and how we progress through our day.
Well, I mean, this is a time of the year where if the situation allows for me, I mean, I want to get Nick's opinion on this too. I want to get your opinion on this too. But for me, I'm trying not to have 20 rods on the deck of the boat, but I'm going to have a lot. And one of the things that I start to rely heavily on is a crankbait. And it's kind of tricky here. So, if you fish a wide variety of waters, you might be on a shad colored crankbait, one day, and I'm a shallow water guy for the most part in the fall. I think a lot of us are. This is one of my favorite. I've said it 1,000 times. I mean, I love crankbaits, but a 1.5 KVD is hard to beat. It hunts, it casts well, This is a hard knock version, which I've had some really good success with. I fish both the silent and the hard knocks. If I'm tournament fishing, I do change the hooks out. You know, they don't have the best hooks on them. They're all right for fun fishing. I really don't care if I lose a fish when I'm fun fishing, but I sharpen them, and they do a good job. But for tournament fishing, you know, I do take the time, and I do change the hooks out. You know, I will put a Gamakatsu or a the TBL 930 Hayabusa with the NRB coating on it. That's a bad boy.
Nice hook.
I tend to like that round bend style hook myself. But anyways, without getting all bogged down on hooks, you know, you got shad colors are going to be predominant, right? Mm-hmm. So I rely heavily on, and another thing is you're going to have a little bit of a variety here because of the different depths. So for me, you know, it's a KVD 1.5. It's a DT8. It's a, and I start to get into some flat sides. I start to really rely on my Fritz sides and my chick magnets, right? These are great crankbaits. These are fish catching crankbaits. But you know, the reality of it is, guys, and you know, we're gonna get Nick's opinion on this and your opinion. There's so many awesome brands of crankbaits out there.
Yeah, there's a billion.
I don't think it's a secret weapon. I think it's have confidence in what you're throwing, but more importantly for me, I know what this bait's gonna do. Like I fish this bait on 15-pound line. I know what this bait will do. I know the depths I can fish in, and I can fish this in a foot of water. I can fish this down to 5-6 foot of water. Mm. I know how it's going to handle cover. I'm comfortable throwing it into trees. I'm comfortable ripping this. I know what this bait does. I've thrown this thing since day one.
That's the big thing, is having confidence in your bait and making sure you're throwing something you have confidence in. The other thing that happens this time of year is you got a lot of storms. Got a lot of rain. You got a lot of water clarity issues.
Oh yeah.
Don't forget, man. This is going from spring in reverse, so don't forget your reds.
Absolutely,
huge thing. When they get on this red, Nick, and this time of year, I'm telling you, when that water's like really stained and you need that real bright red, it is amazing what this thing will do. But have that confidence in a crankbait. Throw a couple different ones out there. Try some flat size. Try some square bills. You know, try that. Listen, Rapala DT series.
Money.
We ain't saying we're not going to say anything about it because it's guaranteed. I mean, it's guaranteed money. But so are these baits. These baits right here will get it done. Is stuff we have a lot of confidence in to get that done. So
I carry a lot of crankbaits with me.
But the big point is make sure you crankbait.
Just saying.
Make sure you throw a crankbait. This, if any time of the year coming into this is crankbait thing. And a crankbait will play a big part of this right into that deep fall time of year, you know. So now to then, it is something you got to have tied on. Like George said, he has a lot of rods on his deck, you know, and we
have a lot of crankbaits.
We're going 3 or 4 crankbait rods rigged up, ready to go. We're going, you know, with 2 or 3 spinnerbait rods ready to go, 2 or 3 chatterbait rods. I mean, we have stuff covered, you know, all this stuff we're going to talk about. It's because you have to run through the progression. It's not easy, but you know, for us, I take on Sunday, for instance, you know, because that was the last time I was out fishing. We progressed, and it took us an hour and a half, or maybe even closer to 2 hours, to really dial these fish in and what they were doing. You know, we progressed from dirty water into stained water into clear water. We tried, you know, the spinnerbait, the chatterbait, the crankbait, I even went to God help me. I went to a Ned rig. I mean, and I didn't know what was going on. I was still, it was in my mind. So I went to that, and then we finally started dialing into where these fish were and what they were doing. But it took us an hour and a half to get there. Now, from that after that hour and a half until we left, we knocked a freaking tar out of them. We waylaid them suckers, but it took us forever. I mean, without a bite, he caught a 15-pound catfish on a chatterbait And that was the only bite we had in an hour and a half. It was amazing until we finally went through the progression of the day and got on them. Talk to us about some of these other baits, George, the spinnerbait.
Well, first of all, I want to get cameraman Nick's opinion. I know he's a big crank guy. I want to get his opinion on like, is there anything that you're looking for? I'm not necessarily wanting you to give up any like trade secrets on baits, but is there anything you're looking for that tips you off to what to do crankbait wise?
For me, it's the wind. The wind's going to play a factor in what I'm going to throw.
Well, I like that.
And where I'm going to throw it. And the more and more I fish, the more and more I see it being a player everywhere I go. I was just up at Champlain, and 2-day tournament had opposite wind both days. And boy, did that throw them fish for a total loop.
Yeah.
And you need to know how to adjust. And I feel like that. So with the crankbait, I'm going to look at the wind, but
those are prime scenarios though. The wind is good for the crank.
You need it. But I'm going to keep it simple. I really like that 1.5. If I'm fishing laydowns, things like that, that's the perfect bait for me. I know, like George, you said it perfect. I know what it's going to do. I got confidence. Sure, there's other baits that I'll try and I'll play with. And if I get the confidence, I'll stick with it. But that 1.5 is hard to put down.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And, I know in my scenario, I carry a lot of crankbaits with me. Some of it's from the experimental phase, being in the tackle business, but a lot of it's like baits that I rely on, but it's grown to be a lot of models. So when you fall in love with a crankbait, it's, you need your color range. So I mean, I'm all over that chick magnet. I'm all over a OG Slim. I'm all over a Fritz side. I mean, that's a lot of crankbaits. I'm all over a 1.5. Well, I'm an old school bandit guy.
Well, we said crankbaiting can be as technical as anything. Like if you're really into worm fishing, you have a bunch of worms. If you're really into jerkbait fishing, you have 2 boxes full of jerkbaits. Crankbaiting is no different. When you get into crankbaiting, you'll have the colors to take care of any situation. You'll have the different wobbles for any situation, and your box will be packed full of it. And it'll make a difference if you really are good at crankbaiting. Which one to throw when for those situations,
and what line size to use. For each.
What the
George said something that was, I didn't know you were going to go there, George. But bandit, yeah, I know a little bit about that too.
Yeah, I like a 100 and 200 bandit.
Oh yeah,
300 bandit. Now I will say this: in this fall, early fall, to me, it's like this is kind of like WWE wrestling. I mean, this is hand to hand. These fish are shallow and they're aggressive. So I like heavier line. I like the biggest hook I can get away with. And I like a rod that does not have a tremendous amount of like traditional crankbait give to it. I'm usually cranking in this phase. I will crank with my glass rods, don't get me wrong, but I'm usually cranking with a graphite, moderate to fast tapered rod, depending on the cover. If it's grass, I'm cranking fast tapered. If it's hard cover, I'm cranking medium, heavy, moderate. I alternate between the St. Croix medium, heavy, moderate. I alternate between an 845 CBR Loomis. If it's grass, I don't even use a crankbait rod. I use a 7-foot or a 7-1 or a 7-2 medium, fast tapered.
Yeah.
Just multi-purpose rod. Because why? Because I want to pop the crankbait free of the grass. And I'll tell you, in early fall, one of the deadliest grass cranking techniques that you will ever experience is either a wake bait or a baby 1-. It is freaking deadly. Now, if it's a tidal river, that window is going to be, depending on the top. Once it gets low tide, that's not going to work because the grass is all matted out. But that last little bit before that grass mat's out, you start watching that grass as you're going down through there, and you'll start to see areas of the grass that give out first, and it creates little runs through the grass, like a little creek coming through like a little channel coming through the grass. Get on that channel. Crank it with a wake bait, crank it with a baby 1-. I am all over that. I am all over that Shimano wake bait. That little 50 wake bait is a bad boy. Baby 1-. So that is another key early. I was watching the Potomac Toyota series today, and I remember when I fished one of those in September, and I remember how tough it was. And I put it on them on a shad colored baby 1-. I mean, it was money.
So, that's a big deal there. Another progression that you definitely don't miss this time of year is topwater. I mean, topwater is so key right now. You're going to catch key fish on it. You're going to catch lots of fish on it. It's a lot of fun. So you want to make sure you have a topwater tied on. We're big fans of walking baits this time of year.
What are you looking for there, big dog?
Any kind of walking bait. We're big fans of the Mega Bass, Giant Dog X. It's just a great walking bait. You could do a Super Spook Junior. You could do a Super Spook. Don't be afraid of the bigger size Super Spooks. There's a million of them out there. Strike King makes a really good one. But, I'm a big fan of the Mega Bass Giant Dog X. That's one of my favorites. Don't think that the first thing in the morning is the only time you can throw it, or in the evening. I mean, you are going to catch more fish on topwater in the morning, and you're going to catch a lot of fish in the evening. But there is times during the day that you will absolutely catch fish all day long on topwater. And I would suggest that you do topwater fishing at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock until you get off the water and try it, because you'll have one of my greatest smallmouth days in my recollection that I had was at noontime. We were struggling a little bit, and we moved around. We moved into this one area, and we caught 30 some fish on topwaters, and they were all big, nice, beautiful smallmouth. Saved my day. My customers were totally crazy about it, but it was a noon to 1 o'clock, man. We killed them, on a topwater bite. You never know when it's going to happen. And it was a late September, mid to late September, right about here. Got hot in the afternoon, warmed the water up. I don't know. The bait fish were moving, whatever happened. But we tried it, and we kept trying it all day long, and we finally nailed it.
I was going to ask you, Mike, was there anything at that particular time that prompted you to?
Well, probably the biggest thing was the big giant smallmouth jumping out of water, eating shad.
That'll do it.
That kind of put me on the right path there. I probably could have thrown a spinnerbait in the water and caught him, too. But I really like a topwater bite. Make sure you check it. That's all. As my point is, make sure you check, and throughout the day. And a lot of people are, I get that question a lot in here. How late do you throw them in the morning? I never stop throwing them. What are you talking about? We usually do it early in the morning and late in the evening. Well, yeah, it's really good then, because the boat pressure hasn't been out there, and the people haven't beaten up on the fish yet, and they're up high in the water column. So yeah, it's good, but you can have some wonderful, wonderful times in the middle of the afternoon. Always throw a topwater,
and don't sleep on a buzzbait.
Oh, well, that's the other thing we were talking about. For me, the walking bait is my number one bait, but my God, the buzz bait. I mean, the buzz bait is king this time of year. It can be just absolutely phenomenal. I like the buzz bait around some kind of cover. I'll open water fish the walking bait better, but when I get around grass or grass beds or some kind of structure of some sort, then I like to throw a buzz bait. Treble hooks and that kind of stuff doesn't work out real well. So this is more my open water bait. This is more my cover bait. Between these two baits right here, you can get the job done like crazy. And our third top water bait would be popper. The popper is a bad to the bone thing. We use Don Ivinos, we use Ricos, but any kind of really quality popper, that's what you want to throw.
There's a lot of days this time of the year when I will start with a topwater and end with a topwater. As much as we just talked about the crankbait,
yeah,
there are those days where, and a lot of it for me is a tournament situation where I don't care about how many fish I catch. I care about the biggest fish. And so it's a mindset thing that I want you guys to grab a hold of here. It's an odds thing. It's a numbers thing. So, if you're a big fish hunter, this time of the year can be challenging, as we've talked now for 3 weeks in a row, but it can also be absolutely spectacular for big bites on a topwater. But you have to lock it in your hand, and you have to cover an exceptional amount of water. You have to run that bait down boat docks. You have to run that bait down laydowns. You have to run that bait on seawalls. You have to run that bait around grass. And you're going to have several topwaters rigged up. Now the guys here talked about the walking bait. Spectacular. The giant dog X, the shower blow, the super spook.
Yeah.
The super spook junior. You see that shad being about that big, put that super spook junior on. I want to talk about two of my favorite big fish baits. Now, this is going to be reservoir fishing and tidewater fishing. I want to talk about the buzz bait with a toad on it. And why the toad? Well, it draws strikes, but why? To be perfectly honest with you, I can skip a buzz bait with a toad, and you can too. You can too. It skips great. Take your skirt off your buzz bait, put a horny toad on it. It'll skip really well, and you can put that buzz bait in the places that it needs to go. Remember, you're just covering water, and you're picking apart every high value target. The buzz bait and the plopper.
I knew that was going to come out somewhere.
So I rigged the plopper. When I'm fishing for quality, I'm fishing a 110 or a 130 plopper. When I'm fishing for numbers, I'm fishing a 90. And I love a white belly. Okay? This is a what they call a monkey butt. It's a ghost color. Love it. This is called rat-a-tat-tat. It's my favorite color because of the white belly. I do put a feather on the back treble. I don't know if that's makes me feel good, but I put a feather on the back of my plopper. I put a feather on the back of my dog X. I put a feather on the back of my super spook and my super spook junior. My other baits come with feathers on them, and if I can get those bites in a pace that keeps me in the game, I'm throwing that son of a gun all day long.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a million different topwaters you can throw with that. I mean, there's guys, ringing in with this thing with just straight up toad, a toad. It's the time of year for that and frogs. And
Big Bass Bobby Lane had an interesting take last week on Clark's Hill. The fish were a little cranky. They're a little cantankerous.
They were Septemberish, George. That's the word.
Yeah, they were. And he was throwing a plopper. Well, he was throwing a El Chapo.
Oh, was he throwing El Chapo?
El Chapo.
Huh.
And
I told you about that El Chapo, didn't I?
Well, he was throwing that. And
don't disregard
what
El
happened
Chapo.
was the point he made that I found very interesting because I fished mine on 50-pound braid. He's like, I like to fish mine on 50-pound braid. Don't get me wrong. But last week he said, I was pulling the bait away from fish. They were just not, they were committing to it, but they were not eating it. So I went to 20-pound big game, and my ratio went through the roof. So, You know, I'm generally throwing my top waters on 50-pound Power Pro, but I always have a rod with 14-pound mono on it. Now, I might throw other baits on that rod, but last year, the majority of my topwater fish came on that 14-pound mono. I didn't have a great topwater year last year in general, and I went to that mono early. I was frustrated with some missed fish, and I rode it all year long. Whether it was a good day or a bad day, at that point, it wasn't changing. You know what I mean?
Yep. And George, you know, you're talking about the plopper, the buzz bait. Are you using the same rods for a lot of these different baits, or do you have a different setup?
The only time I really change up on that is when I go to that bigger 130 plopper. I actually go to basically a frog rod because it's such a heavy bait. So I go to my 7.2 heavy rod that I use for frog fishing, or my 7.2 medium heavy. But everything else I'm fishing is on a either a 7-foot medium fast or a 7.2 medium heavy fast. That'll be all my other top waters. I like to fish them with braid. Like my favorite way to fish a buzzbait, 7.2 medium heavy fast, 50-pound braid. My favorite way to fish a splash it or a dog X, 7-foot medium fast, 50-pound braid. My favorite way to fish a plopper is on that 7-foot medium or a small buzzbait. Like, I'll tell you a little secret about buzzbaiting in the fall, early fall particularly. There are times when you get yourself around fish that are relating to the last spawn of shad, and the little suckers are little. And don't think I won't put a 1/4 ounce buzzbait on. Take the skirt off. Oh my God. All right. Here we go. And don't think I won't put a 3-inch Zaco on a 1/4 ounce or an 1/8 ounce buzzbait when them little shad-eating buggers are really starting to piss me off. Now, you will catch a bunch of fish. You will go through a bag of these things in one day, but you will catch a pile of fish. And I have some 1/4 ounce and 1/8 ounce buzzbaits in my collection, and I will throw them on that 7-foot rod with 50-pound braid.
Well, it's all about
put that on.
It's all about matching the hatch. So
you can do the same thing with Super Fluke Junior.
You got to match the hatch. You know, you match the hatch the size of the bait fish. If for instance they're on that small bait fish, then you dial in with that small buzz bait. And if they're on the big bait fish, then you dial in with the 3/8 ounce with the big blade. You know, so you want to do that. So that's kind of somewhat of the progression that we're working through so far. Now let's get into some other baits. Need I say more? These freaking things right here, I'm telling you right now, if you just get these two colors right here, this is all you need. If you're a smallmouth fisherman in the fall, this is what you need. This is absolute freaking the most deadliest bait you'll ever throw. I'm telling you, it's just lakes, rivers, smallmouth related. I mean, I fish largemouth with them too. I catch largemouth on them. Zoom Super Fluke. Now there's a million flukes out there, but Zoom Super Fluke for me is an absolute 100%. Got to have it on my rod. I got to throw it a lot, and I'm going to catch big giant fish on it. It's a big giant fish bait catch rig. You're going to catch the biggest fish in the area on a Zoom Super Fluke when they're on this thing. You know, you look at this color pink. I mean, look at that thing. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But this is 90% of the time, 80% of the time, and this is kind of the rest of the time for me. We've been dabbling with some other colors, which I just came out with. This is a great, bubblegum and white. I mean, come on. And then also we've been messing with this one here, the pearl white with the chartreuse tail. I've been catching smallmouth on Racetown Lake on these things for 20 years. I've been catching smallmouth on the Susquehanna River since they came out on the Super Fluke. Every year, this is a long time bait. This is one of them baits that is around forever. So this is one you want to throw in the fall. George and I, we rig ours on a 3.0 extra wide gap hook. There's an argument for a nose hook in the Fluke. Hey, knock yourself out. Fish it on a nose hook. I don't like a nose hook. I never did like a nose hook. I tried it a million times. I can't get used to it. I don't like it. I'm a 3.0 extra wide gap style guy, and that's the way I rig it. Texas rig, and it just gives the opposite of everything that's going on. If the fish are a little bit funky, you can twitch that thing and get the reaction of them looking at it, and then when it comes down, it falls right into their face. And I think that's why it's so good. It's for tough fish, pressured fish that's seen everything. And it's just one of those actions that, when the spinnerbait isn't working, the chatterbait isn't working, the crankbait, the moving, that straight across the water stuff, that comes across the water like this or underneath them. This is another bait to throw out there. And I just don't see it utilized enough. Honestly, I think, for suspended fish, I think it would be tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. So,
I love it in September and early October. If it's a mild beginning to fall, a lot of the reservoirs that we fish, they take a long time to start to cool down and get into a fall pattern.
They really do.
You get a real funky, suspended fish deal. And you know what? Before forward-facing sonar, we used the fluke to solve suspended fish. Now with it, we use it even more. But there's a couple things you got to do a little bit different. So first of all, when you have those fish, and typically they'll suspend on main lake points because you're not really there. There is fish in the. We opened this show up by saying there's fish in the backs, there's fish in the fronts, there's fish on the main lake.
Yeah.
So the main lake points, the first 2 points going into a creek. I mean, that's textbook. Rick Clun taught us that 40 years ago. But listen, those fish are going to be suspended. They're going to be down. You're going to need to get that fluke down to them. Now, a fluke on its own,
Robert,
fished slowly, will get down, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 feet, no problem. But if you go up the line and put on a barrel swivel, I like a number 7 barrel swivel. I use just a regular old, if you go look at a Spro Taro swivel, it's just a good quality barrel swivel, number 7. Same exact swivel I used the Carolina rig with. You put that up your line about 18 inches, cast that up on top of those suspended fish past them, give it a second to settle down in the water, pop, and just let it do the death spiral on slack line. It's going to do this. And they're looking at it, and all of a sudden you go like this, dunk, dunk, and it does the old kick. When you get down in their neighborhood, they're going to eat it. But all year long, I don't do what's coming up next until now. And this is what's commonly called the donkey rig, which is a double fluke rig. And the double fluke rig from now until it's too cold to fish a fluke is straight money. The rest of the year, we can sit here and we can agree to disagree, argue, whatever. I don't even tie one on. But September, October, November, I very seldom don't tie one on.
Well, we've seen it where, the donkey rig.
It's awesome on suspended fish.
That was the only way you could catch them.
It's freaking awesome.
You could throw a single rig out there, they wouldn't hit it. You put a donkey rig on there, and all of a sudden you're getting bites. It's like, what the heck are they doing?
And that's a valid point.
Why was that? Why is that?
There's that, and that kind of funky stuff goes on a lot with schools of fish. If you get on like a mega school and you're on them for consecutive days, it's like they have the Men in Black thing and somebody snapped it in their face and they forgot what they did yesterday.
They do.
Today
they do.
We're eating donkey rigs.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we dine on the single fluke.
Well,
you got to just experiment with it.
And even on a donkey rig, some days you want to put a small and a big one on.
Can I say this?
It's crazy.
If I was to ask you guys a question, like this was like Jeopardy, I'll take super flukes for 1,000, Alex.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would be the number one clue that would trip you off to donkey rigging this time of the year?
Reeling one in and have another one behind the back, trying to chew the other one out.
Oh man,
mouth.
he took it right from me. Yeah, that's it right there.
I'm standing right in front of the microphone. You got to lean for yours.
Yeah, when you're fighting them and they're just up there going like this, the next cast, get that donkey rig out. Now, then that leads to another thing that Mike and I talk about a lot, and cameraman Nick, and it's with things that are a little more
frustrating,
involved.
Yeah,
a little more of a project.
A pain in the ass. Let's say it. Let's just say it. A pain in the ass.
Something that's nice to do when you're at home.
Yeah.
Enjoying a beverage the night before a fishing trip.
But you're afraid to do it on the water because you're going to miss a cast,
And the donkey rig is that.
Rig it up ahead of time.
And
have it ready to roll.
And when you put it in your rod locker, take a big lure cover. I'm a big fan of the Daiwa tactical covers in the extra large size. They're like, I put my whole entire A-rig in them. Because the A-rig's a pain in the ass too. So you're going to have your A-rig and you're going to have your donkey rig all rigged up in there. And when you go fishing the next day, you're going to get it out of the rod locker and you're going to lay it on the front deck in case you see that. Because you got to strike when the iron's hot.
That's hot.
And I'm here to tell you, the exciting thing about the donkey rig is what, Mike?
Catching two at a time.
My man, pots and pans.
Come on, baby. When one's jumping over here, a 4-pounder's jumping over there, and another one's jumping over here, and you're like, yeehaw, you're in the middle, there's nothing more exciting than that.
The first time I ever fished the donkey rig,
it's tricky, Nick,
was on a guide trip, Nick. And I doubt if he's watching, but gentleman's name is Dan Watt, and he's just a phenomenal supporter of Susquehanna fishing tackle. And back in the day, he took many guide trips with us. And we had one of them days, and I said, we're going to try something. And I rigged up, we call it the double fluke rig. And my man had 4 doubles. Now, I did a demonstration cast, and I doubled on the cast. And then he caught 4 doubles.
It's fun.
My tip that day, now this was back in the mid-90s, my tip that day was like 25 in cash, a 6-pack of Molson XXX. And at the time, you could only get it in Canada. And he brought it back from Canada. And like this special sub sandwich that he brought along. And we caught so many fish, we didn't have lunch. So at the end of the day, he's like, here's
everything.
Here. And that's when we both fell in love with the double fluke rig. And from that day on, we have just had, and it has a drawing power to it. Now, Nick, I want to hear anything you might have to say about it.
Well, the thing I have to say about it, something we always said, is about being aware of your senses. So many times we catch fish, we go fishing, and we don't pay attention to what's going on. You got to look at that fish that you're reeling in. Most people don't even see the other fish behind them.
Yeah.
Pay attention to what's going on, because I'm telling you, like Mike, you said, if you see that there's fish fighting over fish or fighting over bait, you got to take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
You do.
Absolutely.
You do. And that's what happens. Listen,
it's a lot of fun too, man.
Remember last week, guys, when we were talking about dealing with September part 2, and I talked about keeping your head on a swivel. I can't even begin to tell you how many times, and actually Sunday, it didn't happen when we were out.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it was raining, but
Yeah.
I can't even begin to tell you. It's like normal.
That was a weird bite last week.
You know,
it's
when you're fishing this time of the year, it's normal for you to see schooling fish. And, you know, if it's a really good day, they'll be popping up in several places. So my advice, Mike's advice, I'm sure cameraman Nick will echo this, don't chase them. Because as soon as you get to where they are, they're going to blow up where you were. Now, guys.
It's very frustrating. I love it, though.
You know, we talked about cranking. We talked about top water. You know, we mentioned the chatterbait. Last week we talked about chatterbait.
We talked about chatterbait. It's just one of them baits you got to throw.
Mini Max.
The different sizes. The
stealth blade. This is the time of the year for this.
This is, yeah, absolutely.
And we talked about that last week.
We did.
This is just a recap.
We
did. Let's talk about, and I want to rotate around the room here. This will be our speed round, our last minute. The sneaky bait. The sneaky bait that you have tied up for this scenario. And I don't care if you're largemouth fishing, smallmouth fishing, river, lake. I don't care. Maybe not tidal water for me, but I mean, what is your sneaky bait? Go ahead, Nick. You look like you're all primed up.
Oh, I was listening to your scenario. Did you have a scenario or just the sneaky bait of that?
Well, I have a scenario, and for me, it's going to be everything but tidal water.
Everything but tidal water.
I have a bait that's tied up right now, laying on the front deck of my boat. Yeah. Strapped down, ready to go fishing because I'm going tomorrow.
For me, it's something that you're well aware of. It's the Oakshire head with the little swim bait.
Money.
You know, because by this time of the year, these fish seen everything. They've been pressured to hell, you know, and if you don't have the wind and all the thing that's going to make all these other baits really work, that bait right there, the Oakshire head with the small swim bait, is going to come through for you, in my opinion.
Money. Straight cash money. Mike, what do you got?
Well, you know, I'm a swim bait guy. Love throwing the swim bait. Love throwing, you know, all different sizes. Everybody hear me talking about them all the time. But one way of throwing a bait that really will make a fish bite it, you know, like, so this is for high pressured, you know, these fish are just kind of like really looking at these baits really super hard. Well, you need to add a little action to that swim bait, you know, because just a standard swim bait just isn't triggering that fish to bite. You know, there's a little small trigger that you're missing.
But you know it.
I mean, let's face it.
What are we looking at there, Mike?
This is a scrounger head, and it's hard to see, but it's basically a jig head with a plastic lip on it. And the guy who really got that thing going, you know,
hey, Mark.
I mean, Aaron Martins was the guy who really brought this back to life, but it's been around for a long time, and he's kind of brought it back to light. Then he redeveloped it, you know, with different lips and stuff, and a lot of these baits right here are because of Aaron Martins right now. And this is a bait that when it goes through the water, it flops the bait.
It's freaking deadly too.
So when you're going through the water, it's doing this.
What do you put on it?
And you know, you can put.
What do you put? What's your secret sneaky rig?
You could pretty much put anything you want on this, but you know, I'm a swim bait guy, so I like a Relaxation Innovations, you know, paddle tail, the little dipper. I don't like a big bait. I'll put a little dipper bait on like this and put that on there. But look, you know, you can put anything you want. You can put a little fork tail bait on here.
I love a super fluke on it.
You know, you can put a super fluke on here.
I love a super fluke.
You know, any kind of fork tail bait works really well, but this is me, man. This got me written all over it.
So for people that never used something like that before, you're just reeling it in.
It's kind of like one of the easiest baits to ever throw. The only thing you have to figure out is the sink rate, you know, to figure out what depth of water you want to bring it through. So, you know, now we have forward facing so we can see it, but
yeah, and that's a good point, Mike.
For guys that don't, you got to figure out the sink rate so that, you know, if you're marking fish at 16 feet, you're not reeling it at 8 feet above them. You got to get it down to 16 or 15 or 14, and bring it over top of them. So you got to figure out the sink rate, throw it out, count it down, and reel it at a certain pace so it doesn't lift up, but you get that nice level swim with it. And I'm telling you, man, that plastic lip on that thing, those fish that are looking at your baits and you're trying to figure out how to get them to bite and you're just not getting those bites. This is one of those things that'll absolutely, and again, tie it up, put it on a rod, and stick it in the rod locker right now. Because I'm telling you, you're going to be thinking about this thing. And if you're like me, you won't stop and just re-rig. You won't do it. You won't stop and take off the baits that that are working, that should work, and then put this on. You won't do it. But if you have it all tied up, you'll go, oh man, this is the perfect scenario. That gut fishing with your gut, it works a lot better when everything's rigged up ahead of time. The Alabama rig, which we haven't even touched on, this is the time of year for Alabama rig. If you don't have that thing rigged up, you're not gonna take the time to go down and get this thing and take 10, 15 minutes to rig this thing up. You're not gonna do it. You're just not gonna do it unless you're completely disciplined.
If it takes you 10 to 15 minutes to rig up a scrounger,
well, I have to find them first. They're somewhere in my boat.
You're challenged.
Well, given. We all know that. Everybody, hey, listen, I'm all right with that. I'm all right with that.
All right.
But I fish by the gut, and the gut says you better be changing when you feel like you should be changing.
I like your guys' picks. I love your calls, but I think I got the commissioner here. I think I got the boss. Now, this bait is primarily known as a northern bait, and it's primarily known as a bait that shines post-spawn before these fish set up on their summer haunts up north. Okay, I'm not going to disagree with that. But for me, this bait excels from now until the water gets cold on schools. And these schools are forming now. And you can be on a reservoir, a river. We do it out here all the time. Any reservoir you want to go to. The only place I haven't done well with it is tidal water. What is it? I know you're all dying to know.
Spinnerbait.
Negative.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Good guess, though. But you're off by 700 degrees. Spy bait.
Oh, gosh.
So I throw a Duo Realis.
Yeah.
And I throw a Jackal Eye Shad. Those are the two spy baits I throw. I throw the Duo Realis with a white belly. I don't care what the rest of it looks like. I throw my favorite one is called Kamochi Wagasagi.
Yeah. George, what are the prime conditions for a spy bait?
That's a fantastic question. So the absolute prime condition for it is when you can actually locate and identify a school of fish, a school of bass, which you will start to see right now. They could be relating to a outside edge of a grass bed. They can be they could be pelagic and just relating to bait fish. They can be relating to a rock ledge. It doesn't matter. But they're going to form up around bait. Okay, so what I like to do when I'm having a banging day is when I find multiple schools of fish. Okay, now we already talked about seeing them fighting coming in. When you see that, that's a school of fish, okay? A school of fish, if you want to get technical, is like multiple fish. You have 5 fish, you have a school. I'm not talking about counting them. I'm talking about I'm getting bit on every cast. Well, here's the deal with the spy bait and what it does. The spy bait tends to catch the biggest fish in that school. It's also my cleanup hitter. It's also my leadoff hitter.
Yeah.
So what I do is I pull up on a school that I've identified. I get on my trolling motor, I position my boat, and I fan cast that area 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 casts with a spy bait. I'm going to catch a fish.
It takes about an hour.
I'm going to catch a fish, okay?
Deathly slow.
I fish it on a spinning rod. I fish it on 8-pound fluoro. I do not fish braid to a leader. and I slow wind it, and I can control the depth of that bait pretty well. Okay. Because of experience of using it. Now, like I said, I'll start on my school. If I get bit, it's probably going to be big boy. And that's going to fire them up, and then I'm going to go through my progression. I'm going to go from my most aggressive bait to my least aggressive bait. Then I'm going to fan cast area with my spy bait, pull the trolling motor, fire up the big motor, run to the next school. Repeat. But my sneaky bait that comes into play right now is my spy bait. So
I like it, George.
I'll tell you, man, I loved Mike's pick. I fished BFLs one year with a gentleman that works for Garmin by the name of Mark McEwen. Mark, I hope you're watching, man, because Mark's a hell of a guy. But he was my co-angler for a season.
He schooled you on that thing, man.
I'm telling you, my man.
Ever since then, it's been game on with the scrounger.
I learned how to fish a scrounger by having Mark on the back deck of my boat. And I'll tell you what, we were fishing tidal water. We were fishing lakes. We were up north. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
He fished a scrounger with a super fluke and Arkansas shiner 99% of the time and whooped their ass.
Yeah.
And I learned so much about it that it became a player for me. I loved your pick.
Yeah.
Nick, the Akashira screwhead with the spark shad. I love that bait. I've caught so many fish on that bait, and it's a big fish. One of the greatest big fish days I ever had in my life last year on Lake Ontario. I just came on that bait.
I want everybody,
amazing bait.
I want everybody just to realize that, it as you can see, we didn't even talk about a tube. We didn't talk about a Ned rig. We didn't talk about a drop shot rig. We didn't talk about a shaky head.
We didn't talk about a mag draft.
My point is that, spinnerbait, my point is that we will exhaust all these options up here first. We will exhaust the moving bait, the power bait, and it would absolutely be painful, but we would progress into that slower moving stuff. And I don't want to rule that out. And that's what I want you guys to do. But it's the very last thing we're going to do. It's the very last, grabbing at the straws type of thing to dial those fish in. And realize too that like these big reservoirs, like Nick was on a big reservoir, even though he was up north, very up north, it was still a summertime pattern. It was still a very summertime pattern for him. A lot of these big reservoirs are a little bit behind. We're fishing a shallow river on Sunday. The river temperature was 68 degrees. The fish were a lot more progressed, and they were kind of into the power fishing type of setup. Although we had to cycle through everything. So just remember, when it all comes down to it and you want to catch fish, you may have to slow down and throw a tube or throw a Ned rig or throw a shaky head or throw a drop shot. We're not ruling that out. We're just saying power fish is going to give you the opportunity to have these freaking spectacular days, these wonderful, awesome, spectacular days in the fall. And it's also going to allow you to find the fish and cover a lot of water and find those fish quicker. So that's why we wanted to do the show tonight on this.
And catch some big fish.
Yeah. There's a couple other baits we want to talk about. We'll mention them quickly. There's a spinnerbait. This is the time of year spinnerbait starts popping. And of course, the swim baits really start cracking off. But I think we'll do shows on spinnerbait fishing and swim bait fishing coming up here. And we'll also do stuff that we didn't get to, Alabama rig and some of those types of things, which are all going to come to play here this time of year. But, we just talked about the things that we really go to and that we really know we're going to catch fish on. And I think we covered it very well. Don't you, George?
Not bad.
Yeah. So you got any quick tournament info, George, or there was really nothing really going on there?
Well, today's day one of the Toyota series on the Potomac River. And, the Potomac in September, for 1% of the field is having an awesome day, and the other 99% of the field is watching paint dry.
Oh, man.
I do have some interesting information to share. The leader of that tournament is from Florida, Christian Greco, and he's 18-pound 1 ounce.
Golly bum, man.
Right.
Boy, if he could back that up, he's done.
12th place is our man Gray Buck with 13.09.
No kidding.
Yep, 12th place. Our man Gray Buck with 13.09. 35th place is Brian Schmidt with 11.13. So you have, in 35 places, you have a 6-pound change in. So they're packed. I mean, it's just stacked and packed. Obviously the guys with the 18 and the 15 and the 14 and the 13, they have a leg up on the competition, but you know what?
They got to put it together the second day, and down there, it's hard to do.
The problem with September on the Potomac River is it's really, really hard to back that up.
Yep.
Especially after day one, all those boats throttling that place. Yeah. It's really hard to back it up. So that's where we stand. We're keeping our eyes on Gray Buck.
Yep.
We're keeping our eyes on Brian Schmidt. We're keeping our eyes on Joe Thompson.
Yep.
A few other of our favorite tournament anglers.
Did you say where JT was?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
And there you go.
Yeah. Perfect.
Tomorrow we will watch the weigh-in again, and Saturday the top 10 will go out, and somebody will bring home a big gold check.
Beautiful.
So go get them, guys. Gray Buck, Brian Schmidt, Joe Thompson. Get it done.
Yeah. Austin Yanks, thanks for stopping, brother. And hell yeah, we throw mag drafts this time of year. All right, guys, until next time, we appreciate everything you do, and we'll see you at the next Tackle Shop Live. Sunny day, right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real. You make me smile when I think of you. If I am down or when I am blue, I can't get enough. You make me happy, I feel so fine. Oh, how I wish that you were mine. I can't get enough. Oh, please I woke up all soaked in sweat, with chills running down my neck. I'm going crazy from just the thought of you. A long blonde hair and your beautiful smile. Your sense of humor makes it all worthwhile. Don't make me wait, it's not a funny game. You know just what I feel. Please tell me your love is real. You make me